Yeah, the royal family has fascinated people around the globe, especially those of us who aren't part of the UK or the Commonwealth.
So for more on that fascination, we are joined live by visiting assistant professor at UWM, Michael Meyer. And Professor Meyer, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Let's talk a little bit about the Queen and the fascination with the royal family here in the U.S. Why is there so much interest in the royals, and why is there so much interest in the death of the Queen today?
So I think it comes down to two things, right? So first of all, our American story is intertwined with the British story, right? The United States was a British colony, and so we share a language, we share some of those ties. We share, media in a lot of ways, right? We have sort of similar entertainment media. I think the other is that Americans are very interested in glamour and glitz. I think we've had our own American families, people like the Kennedys, even the Trumps, if you want to think about it, people who are um, wealthy and glamorous and powerful in ways that we are interested in and drawn to.
And Michael, kind of building upon that, we know that the late Queen took the throne in 1952. We have witnessed enormous social change ever since. I mean, she met more than a dozen American presidents during her time on the throne. What kind of influence did the Queen have on our country? And do you think the fascination and the relationship that Americans have with the royal family will continue under the new king now?
I think it's a very interesting question about what the future of our interest in the monarch is. I think that one of the things that's been interesting is that the Queen reigned for so long, 70 years. There's very few people here who know of any other monarch, right? So she is such a constant figure. So we've sort of been interested in the stories and her connection to, say, Princess Diana, who is an international celebrity, is interesting, and the stories of Meghan Markle now I think have been interesting. So I do think people will continue to be interested in the royal family because they're very good at throwing off exciting and interesting storylines for Americans to latch onto.
Well, speaking of looking forward, so Charles is now King Charles III. What will you be watching for in the coming weeks in terms of this transition? What should people be watching for?
I think it's going to be very interesting in watching sort of what the feeling is in Britain. I think that um, Elizabeth had a certain constancy to her reign because she had been there for so long. I think people have a different view of Charles. I think Charles is less of a exciting figure to them. I think there's much more mixed feelings about him. So I'll be curious to see how the British view of its own monarchy um, changes over the time now that there's finally somebody new. I mean, this is going to be the first royal transition in the lifetime of most Britons, and so I think that'll be something that'll be interesting to watch in terms of the future of the monarchy there.
You kind of mentioned just, how beloved the Queen was and just how obsessed and fascinated Americans were with the royals. Do you anticipate, a lot of people traveling overseas now to kind of pay their respects?
I wouldn't anticipate a lot of people traveling right away. I do think that people are going to be very. I think people. I think Americans are maybe more interested in the next generation of royals. Your Meghan and Harry, who of course are not so um, connected to the royal system anymore, but also Kate and William. I think those are people that I think people are more interested in. I think Charles in some ways has been the next guy in line so long that people are sort of unsure what to do with themselves now that he's taken over.
I know it's hard to encapsulate 70 years on the throne, but if you were to look at Queen Elizabeth's amazing life, what do you think she will be remembered most for?
So I think she'll be remembered most for how much change she presided over. I think in 1952, the British Empire was this enormous world bestriding behemoth still. And it isn't that anymore, right? And so she sort of oversaw that shift in sort of Britain's role in the world. And I think in a lot of ways it's been, that the receding of English power, is positive for a lot of countries that were finally be able to be fully independent and get away from the British Empire. Um, But I also think that for Britain, she marks this sort of transition from being the world's leading nation, sort of pre-World War II, to what they are now, which is an important one, a highly influential one whose influence and culture still, I think, informs a lot around the world. The English soccer, for instance, is a huge deal internationally, but who, for her own has seen the role of Britain change during her reign, and I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to people to grapple with over the next few days, because it is a story of decline in some ways for the British Empire, but it also is a story of self-determination for lots of people who were previously connected to the British Empire.
I was just looking at that video on the screen there, and man, she was a fashion icon too with those hats and gowns. I love it.
Certainly was.
Michael Myrer with UWM, thank you so much for your insight and for joining us here on the News at 4.
Great, my pleasure.
Thank you.